Kaval, who is essentially the sword of war. Kaval has this on and off relationship with Treya, and then both of them are forced to sit. Just imagine having an ex at your job. That's not always very interesting.
That is never interesting.
Welcome to the YouNeek Show, where we talk about all things unique studios, African geekdom, and the business of creators.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the YouNeek Show. My name is Roye Okupe. I am the CEO and founder of YouNeek Studios.
Jay Abaje, the founder of Niger Nerds and fan of YouNeek Studios. Let's talk about this stuff here. We are here to talk about a book series.
Yes.
From YouNeek Studios.
Yes.
That is, in my opinion, the best stuff they have ever done. Which is saying a lot if you remember how much I love their other stuff. really, really good stuff. And I can only say it this way. You've outdone yourself, Roy. Mm-hmm. Your team has outdone themselves. Mm-hmm. And if this doesn't end up being an animated series, we will have words. I can tell you. This is good stuff, man.
It is. No, I'm extremely proud of everything that we've done on this series. It's been a lot of work. I'm not even gonna, try to front on that. There's been a lot of work that's gone into creating the series, but like you said, I think it's our best work yet. But that should be the case, right? Everything that you do after your previous work, you should try and make it your best work, and I think that's what we've done with the Asiri. And I genuinely and honestly cannot wait for people to check it out.
In all honesty, I love the fact that not only do you have a strong work ethic, which is one of the biggest reasons for your success, but you also have this approach where you're also dropping gems all the time. And I think you said something when we were talking about this before. You said it's your best work because you're always challenging yourself to outdo yourself the last time.
Correct. Yes.
This is definitely your best work for that reason, but also because you succeeded at that reason, right?
Yeah. To me, it's a life lesson, right? It's not just even about writing or producing or being an artist. I think you should wake up every day trying to be a better person than you were the last day. I mean, that sounds cliche, but to me, that's just what I feel like we're on earth here to do is to continually improve ourselves for the betterment of our brothers and sisters.
Stop attacking me, Roy. Come on.
It's the truth, though. It is. Truth hurts.
So today we're going to be talking about the Asiri. And the Asiri is an epic galaxy or world of worlds spanning story that is quite frankly not only is it impressive in its scope, but how much thought went into each character, the makeup of each character, their personalities, their looks, where what drives them, their motivations, and how they intertwine. The threads you're weaving, things you're seeing here. This yarn is a good one. So today we're going to be talking about the characters. We're going to be breaking it down about each character.
Correct.
I was going to say something from the greatest to the least, but is there really one who's the greatest and who's the least?
I mean, there are more important characters than others, right? But I mean, I think today we'll focus on the Ascended. The Ascended are essentially the 10 council members that govern this galaxy-wide kingdom of the Asiri. So we can definitely talk about from the king to the least of the Ascended, and see where that goes.
Let's start off by naming all of them.
All right, so we have King Kafan, and next to, I guess, in line is INKRA, INKRA the Superior. Then we have what's her name? We have Treya the Wise. Treya is Kafan's daughter, and then we have INKRA. INKRA is the queen of the Asiri, and then we have Kaval. After that, we have Rad, and then Nan the Trickster, Talon the Fierce, we have Pharaoh the Faceless, and Sorrow, what's a code name? The Angel. Yes, that essentially makes up the Ascended.
So love the fact that these characters, even their visuals, are designed to show some of the inspiration behind them. Like, I mean,
correct.
Anybody who sees the trickster, the second you see him,
yeah, you know he's a trickster.
I know where you got this inspiration from.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that.
Coming to you for royalties. Which is also a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
The fact that you said you're expanding your storytelling beyond just focusing on
Nigeria, correct.
Because Africa is this gigantic, rich tapestry
54 countries.
Cultural content, right? And as a continent, it's so full of stories. And the fact that you're able to bring some of these in and weave them together. So let's break it down. Let's start with
the king,
General Kafan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kafan, right?
Yeah. So King Kafan is, and I'll talk about their powers as well. So King Kafan is the king of the Asiri, and it doesn't come more noble than him. He's your prototypical noble king who would essentially sacrifice himself for the lowest of his subjects. But one of the things that, is very, I don't want to say special about Kafan, but one of the things that's interesting is that Kafan has a huge secret that he's hiding from his subjects. A very, very big one. And to me, one of the things I actually literally wanted to do with their series is that, again, I've telegraphed that there's going to be a civil war, and that's not, it's not a thing, it's not a spoiler. That is essentially the genesis of the story. And for those that don't know, the series, the log line of synopsis essentially is, here we have this very great West African civilization who has conquered space. They're in a golden age. Technology is wonderful, massive, incredible. But with their with the rise of their technology and the rise of their kingdom in terms of just how great it is, they get comfortable. And with that comfort comes cracks in their relationships. These cracks become unattended and they become huge gaps that then kick off a civil war that spreads galaxy-wide and basically almost tears the space-time continuum of the entire galaxy. So that is the bedrock of the story that we have in their series. But one thing that I've always tried to do with my stories is I have this massive, expansive worlds, but it's still very character-driven. And one of the things I wanted to do with their series that it's not very clear where the lines of good and bad are drawn, right? I wanted to create human characters and have them interact in a way where you can see each individual's motivation. So King Kafan wants to protect his people, but he's doing that at the cost of being honest to them. And I think that brings a very, very unique dynamic in terms of how to tell the story of a protagonist who wants to be good, but is doing something bad in order to be good. So that's where his story starts off. So
very good point. Because I mean, leadership itself sometimes requires you to decide what is good for your people to know and what they can handle.
It's a very gray area though. Yeah. Like it's very gray. And then we go knee deep into that gray in the Asiri for all the characters. So in terms of his powers, King Kafan, before I talk about his powers, like all of the Ascended, all 10 of them have this special ability in them called INKRA. INKRA is essentially, think of it like chi, right? Or midichlorians in Star Wars of the Force. Like they have this special power that allows them to transform into these giant beings called the Korra. And each of these Korra comes with a special ability. King Kafan's Korra is called the Guardian, and the Guardian has the ability to he has super strength, like essentially Hulk level type strength, and he carries this massive glowing sledgehammer that can literally smash almost anything to bits. So yes, that is King Kafan's story.
I think when I first saw him show up, better or worse, you look at him and there's certain comparisons. I'm not going to get into the details. Comparisons that will be made when people see his weapon.
Yep.
His fighting style. I thought, okay, this guy is a literal god among men.
Yeah.
Reminds me of God. Can't be avoided. Inspiration will, for better or worse, sometimes be drawn from other places. Yeah. And there's only so many ways you can tell these kinds of stories without somebody saying, "Oh, this looks like correct controversy before," and push to the side and push through. So next up,
Next up is Angkor, the superior. Angkor is the general of the army of the Asiri. He's essentially King Kafan's, not essentially, he is King Kafan's best friend. This creates a very, very interesting dynamic for us in the story, because somewhere down the middle of volume 1, you start to see that their friendship starts to fracture. These two are essentially like brothers. And again, without
brothers-in-law.
Correct. Yes, they're brothers-in-law as well. And that even deepens the relationship as well. And Angkor is very, very patriotic. He would die for his kingdom, like literally in a heartbeat. But even that isn't always a good thing, right? Because sometimes the things that we believe in to be patriotic are not necessarily patriotic. It's just our idea of what patriotism should be. If it's not measured against doing the right thing, then it becomes something else, which can be interpreted as nationalism. But I don't want to get into politics. Read the book and you see all that. So yes,
weights in the pages.
Yeah, and look, one of the things I always love to do, even though I tell these stories that take place 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, I try to bring in current events and integrate them, and you see a lot of that with the Assyria as well. That's where I put it without ending with without giving too many spoilers. So, Angkor the superior pilots, his Korra, which gives him the ability to turn into the superior. The superior has the ability to basically control all the elements: fire, water, ice, lightning, and all that. So he's really, really powerful. And Kafan and Angkor are essentially the two most powerful of the ascended in the Asiri.
Okay, and next up
we have INKRA, with the Earth Mother, one of my favorites, personal favorites. Her design is my favorite. Literally, when she transforms, she has a green afro full of leaves. It's just a beauty.
Her afro is nature. It's natural.
Yeah, exactly. So INKRA is the queen, obviously Kafan's wife, and she is the softness that balances his more like rough edges. She a lot of times people say behind every strong man is a strong woman. I would like to say with her, behind a strong man like Kafan, it's not behind, she's beside him. They rule hand in hand, as well. So yeah, she's a very, very she's not called the Earth Mother for just her powers when she transforms, but she loves nature, she loves people, and she's an empath as well. INKRA has the ability to transform into Mother Earth, essentially, which is the Korra that can control all of plant life, like trees, vines, what you may call it. Like, she's also really powerful as well.
It definitely is. I remember when I first saw her on the pages, I thought, wow, okay, this is definitely a power set. I'm curious to see what she can do with. I'm pretty sure you're gonna come up with creative ways to use that.
Oh yes. Yes.
The earth and nature, and fighting you on the earth and nature.
Exactly.
I mean, that's already position right there.
Yeah, she does. I mean, look, she may be a pacifist, but when it's time to fight, like if you look at the first 4 or 5 pages, she knows what she's doing.
She's
wrecking. Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
I don't want to get into too much detail. Doing some damage. Yeah. All right. So next up, what are we talking about? Treya?
Next up, we have Treya the Wise. So think of her as, what would Tony Stark look like or feel like or sound like when he was 16, but he was born in West Africa? This is where Treya the Wise comes in. She's very brilliant, extremely stubborn, but she's so smart. She's like essentially super smart. She's the one that's in charge of the technology, pioneering the technology for the Asiri, and she is the daughter of Queen INKRA and King Kafan, and she's essentially presented as the heir. But we don't know if that's going to happen because politics, right? So there's a lot of, I need to prove myself because people already think that I have everything being a princess. So because of that, she sort of like steps out of bounds in order to step out of the shadow of her mother and her father. But in doing that, she sort of creates chaos. So Treya pilots the mind Korra, which grants her the ability, or grants her telekinesis. Essentially. So another superpowered character, really, really powerful, but she's super intelligent, and her arc is I know you haven't gotten to the end of the book, but I'll just say I'm going to be expecting a WhatsApp when you get to the end of the book, and I'll leave it as that.
As long as we don't fight, that's good. As long as you and I'm good with it. No, but I liked her already, and I remember thinking, oh, something happened early in the story. I thought, is this some spoiled brat? What's going on here, girl? Like,
yeah,
you know,
she starts off as yeah.
There's a little stubbornness in her, and a little bit of it. Sit down. Like I want because the parts I'm like, this is the wise. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, great character, and I can't wait to see what else happens with her. Who else are we going to be talking about?
Next up, we have Kaval, who is essentially the sword of war. Kaval has this on and off relationship with Treya, and then both of them are forced to sit. Just imagine having an ex at your job. That's not always very interesting.
That's never interesting. Potential problems.
Yeah, Kaval is the only one out of all of the 10 ascended that doesn't come from nobility. So he inherited his power from the previous wielder of his Korra, but he was essentially a commoner. And that creates this essential dynamic on the council where there's some that feel like, what the hell is this guy doing here? Like he doesn't deserve to do, he doesn't have, noble blood. And so he also feels like he has to go above and beyond to prove himself. But instead of the stubbornness and the recklessness of Treya, he does it with sometimes blind loyalty. Right, he's so blindly loyal to Kafan and INKRA, where he doesn't necessarily, I don't want to say think for himself, but he's trying to basically prove himself to them by basically being a yes man, and that gets him in trouble, and it puts him on his story arc where he has to figure out on his own who he is outside of the fact that people think that he doesn't belong. So Kaval pilots the sword of war, which grants an insane level of quickness and agility. Not quite as fast as the Flash, but just think of it like Hermes from Greek mythology. He can move pretty fast, and he's very agile when he goes into his Korra.
Beautiful
swordplay.
Beautiful swordplay too. Yeah. Imagine fighting the Flash and he has swords. Jesus.
That's not fun.
Okay, so who else you want to break down?
Next, we have Rod the Protector. He's essentially the strong and silent type. Rod literally, in the entire book, maybe has 4 or 5 lines, but he has weight when his presence brings about weight. There's a lot of stuff he has to do without talking. He is the type of guy that lets his actions speak louder than his words. He's also very incredibly loyal to King Kafan as well. They grew up together, and so they have this very, very, very tight bond. So Rad has the ability when he goes into his Korra mode to sort of like harden his skin. So he has like impenetrable skin, and it can almost take any attack from anybody, as well. So really, really cool guy, but doesn't say much. I will say though, as we go deeper into the volumes, you start to see why he's so quiet, because that's also tied into his backstory.
Yeah. His beard game is pretty epic too.
It is. I mean, I'm trying to get there, but yeah.
Oh man. Those of us who can only do this, I'm like, this guy. All right. All these hyper interesting characters. Next up.
All right, this is your guy, Nan, the trickster. I'm just gonna come on and say, look, it's inspired by Nan.
Call him Nan. Come on. You named him Nan. Nan is inspired by Anansi. It's not even Anansi. Anansi the trickster himself.
I didn't do a good job. We're trying to hide it, right?
You did not hide it at all. You took off the A and the C and said Nan.
But yeah, he's. I mean, I don't have to say too much because he's a very, very interesting character, and talking too much about him would spoil a lot. I will say he's not called the trickster for nothing, and trickster doesn't always mean bad.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of stuff to break down with Nan. Obviously his Korra is essentially the spider. You know, obviously, so when it transforms 6 arms, you know, obviously 2 legs, and it can web things up and do some pretty cool things. But yeah, I can't wait for people to see what he does in volume 1, how it ends in volume 1, and where he goes in the upcoming volume. But yeah, I was very proud to be able to bring Anansi is one of the mythological, you know, deities I've always wanted to do something with, and I'm glad I got a chance to do it in this book with Nan.
I like the fact that you point out that being a trickster doesn't mean you're evil, even though typically those kind of characters tend to be written as the bad guy.
Yep.
Sometimes they're just the anti-hero. Sometimes they're just the real one.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yep.
Okay. How many do you have left?
We have 3 left, so let's run it through it quickly because I know we're getting short of time. Talon the Fierce is next. Now, this one is a very interesting character. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest, but he doesn't back down for anything. He will fight anyone, any day of the time. He's kind of like the honey badger. Like, I don't care. I'm going to fight anybody. Big, small, tall, fat, slim. Like, I don't care about it. You put me in the ring with someone, I'm going to tear them up. And that's all I'm about. He doesn't take nonsense from anybody. And he's somebody that would throw a punch first before trying to be diplomatic. Let's just put it that way. So Talon transforms into the Fierce, which is a Korra that has this massive claws that can literally swipe almost anything off and cut and just dice and slice it into multiple pieces. It's actually pretty scary.
Is the epitome of bravery.
Yeah. Yep.
So who else?
We have Pharaoh the Faceless. Pharaoh is I can't talk too much about this character. Shapeshifter. That's all I'm going to say. Anything else I say about Pharaoh the Faceless is going to spoil it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. This is probably the most interesting character.
First time I saw this character, I'm like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
Next time I saw him, I'm like, wait, what? Who? What did she just do? Oh,
Yep.
No, it didn't quite work out for her the way she wanted. But the first introduction to her in the book, and I'm not spoiling anything, folks. This is
you're not.
In the book.
Yeah.
But first thing I see her do, she's transformed to somebody else to fight the same person.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm like, wait, who just what am I? Boom. Okay, cool, interesting.
Yeah. A lot of layers with Pharaoh. So I will leave it there. Leave it there.
I will. Mom's the word.
All right. Last and not the least, we have Nsoro, the angel. Nsoro is a very special character. We don't really get to see her a lot until the middle of the book. She's essentially the spiritual guide of the Asiri. Like, she's pious. She wouldn't hurt a fly. And she's somebody that always tries to take the angle of what is not necessarily the right thing to do, but what's the right thing to do in context of our ancestors and the way they did things in the past. She's one of the last few that holds on to centuries lost knowledge, centuries lost religion of the Asiri. And she's sort of essentially like the guiding force and the guiding light of the kingdom in terms of, here is what happened in the past, and this is why we need to continue to go back and do the right things, to honor our ancestors. And Nsoro pilots the angel Korra, which grants her this massive wings. But one of her power is one of the coolest. Like, she can literally teleport to any place she's been before. So she's been to, if she's on Earth, and she, obviously they've been to Mars before, she can travel there in an instant. As well. So as long as she's been there, she can go back in less than a second. So pretty interesting character.
I can tell you that she probably has my favorite power set right now, because I can't lie to you, there's been times when, just for the ability to be able to say, you know what, I remember I had such a lovely time in Dubai. I'd love to go back there.
Just instantly.
I'm in Dubai.
Won't you all?
Even practical things. Oh my God, I forgot I was traveling one time and I forgot my passport. And I realized it at the airport. So luckily I would get somebody to head to my home
and then bring it for you.
Bring it to me at the airport. But if I had her skill set, I wouldn't even need the passport. And if I wanted it and I forgot something, I could just be back.
Yep,
So
yep, yep.
that's her teleportation and place-to-place ability. Really something I would love to have.
I think we would all.
Not so sure about the wings, but beyond that, definitely down for everything. But the Ascended are an amazing group, like, and also a pretty large group. I mean, you would expect an inner cabal of sorts to be a smaller group, but I guess I'm curious to know this. Was the decision made to make it that number 10 because it kind of helps to split them into factions easier? I mean, if there were a core group of say 4 or 5, the opportunity for guile is a lot less. But the larger the group that is in charge, it's easier to say, okay, these 4, these 5, and then it's a subgroup of this group.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, for me, I just love the number 10 for some reason. It had nothing to do with I can split him in half, and just because the factions may split, in a certain way in the beginning, doesn't mean that people are not going to jump from faction to faction or create multiple factions where it could be 2 factions fighting against each other, then it becomes 3 factions fighting in a triangle war. Like, so, you don't try and predict where this is going in terms of factions, but in terms of the number, it's just, I love the number 10. It's clean, it's rounded out. They look nice sitting down on the table, and yeah. I promise I didn't pick them because of the way they look on the table, but that
was well, we're clearly happy that Dark Horse signed you for a 10 book deal.
Yeah, we go.
So I'm not reducing after you. Right? But I'm curious about something. There's something you keep saying I think is interesting. You keep referring to them as piloting this.
Yes.
Piloting that. You want to get into some detail about that?
Yeah, so to me, it's like again, one of the reasons why I'm not, and also one of the reasons for having a large number was, again, like, I grew up watching things like X-Men, right? And just having a bunch of heroes with different personalities and different powers and putting them in a story, it creates its own drama. Like, so that was another one of the reasons why I wanted a larger number of people to interact, because it just creates a lot of drama and tension that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. But I mean, to answer your question about the piloting, this is something where the Korra, they are earned, right? It's not like it's your birthright. So when an Ascended dies, the Korra passes to another person that's worthy. So when they get their power, they essentially tap their medallion to build the Korra around themselves, and they are essentially now piloting the Korra. So it's not necessarily like it's the same being that transforms. Like, they transform and then they're taking control of a bigger thing, of a larger entity that they're essentially piloting and controlling.
Gotcha. Well, that's definitely an interesting way to look at it. And I hadn't really thought about that term. But the term was so interesting because it almost implies a separation of their consciousness from what they're doing. They're actually, they're bonded into that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how that really plays out when I finish it. I'll have more questions.
Sure. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Okay, everyone. So we've talked about this book. The Asiri is available on June 19th. You will be able to get this if you pre-order now. You're signaling to publishing and to all the people involved in producing this book that, yeah, this book has a following. So by all means, go out there, follow YouNeek Studios. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to look up their previous stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff if you haven't caught on to. Not to mention, a lot of it is free. You can just go online, register, and download that stuff off of the website. Super generous of Roye and the team at YouNeek Studios. Yeah. You can also go to your favorite comic book store and look up this book. I'm sure you can order or pre-order it from there as well.
Yes.
Roye, want to give everybody a last word?
Yeah, I wanted to just second what you said. It's important to really, really support your local comic book store or comic book shop. I wouldn't be here without the comic book stores and the comic book industry in general supporting my work. So if you have one that's close to you, go in. You can add the Asiri to your pull list, or you can get the many books that we have. 10 books in store now, from Malika to EXO to Iyanu to Windmaker. You can grab that from your local comic book shop as well. So it's really important that you support them if you can, please. And yeah, you can follow us at YouNeek Studios on all social platforms, and check out our website, uniquestudios.com, where you can read the Asiri Chapter 1. The first 32 pages, free of charge, no strings attached. You get in there, you get it, read it. If you love it, all I ask is you pre-order it, because that helps a lot.
And you can find me at the Niger Nerds. That's the Niger Nerds. I will say this much. Once you start going into this world, you're going to want to take your friends, your family. You're going to be sharing links from the Studios world, all their previous content to people, especially if you're an African who wants to tell stories or introduce your children to quality storytelling that touches on themes that you grew up with, and also celebrates African culture. You want to definitely get into this and follow YouNeek Studios. Be sure to do that, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.